Revolutionary greetings to comrades who are with us today here. It's a pleasure and a wonderful journey we are starting today, an exciting one indeed, for us to sit down and do what we call a book review, book study, and book discussions. My name is Pijino Dimwengo. Of course, I'm a member and a coordinator of Conscientism Study Group, which is a philosophical and ideological study grouping. Conscientism Study Group has so many things that they do. We do issues to do with Kiswahili lessons, so I teach Swahili for Pan-Africans on Tuesday. We have a Thursday philosophical discussion. We have a Saturday Pan-African unity discussion. And now we are creating this new class on Sunday, which is about now reviewing the books. We have a library called CSG Pan-African Library, and we upload almost 50 books, which is Afrocentric books, every day. So we have uploaded over 2,000 books on a daily basis that have been so far shared in our library. And part of the book we are reviewing today, called Georgia Iti's book, Defeating Dictators, is one of the books that was shared in that platform. And we thought it is very important and very wise enough that we learn these tactics, because Africa is full of dictators. So we are pleased to have you with us, and we are looking forward to have an engagement season. It can take us around 10 to 14 weeks, but we are sure we'll be able to do this and finish it. What we intend to do basically is to read. So we'll be sharing the reading. Maybe we read even for 45 minutes. Now stop, we read paragraph, we share around the reading. Then from there, we discuss a bit what we have read. How do we understand that, what we've read? And then that's done. So after 2 hours, that's done, we go to the next session. So that's basically what we want to do today. And once again, permit me to welcome all of you. Feel free to introduce yourself and meet yourself. Let us know who you are and where you're joining us before we start. Thank you and most welcome. Who would like to go first? Just unmute yourself. Let us know where you're joining us from and who you are.
My name is Prof. Hegel Mosh. I'm from Kenya, from Nairobi, an avid reader. I work in the medical sector as I'm a pathologist, medical microbiologist also. And I want to congratulate you for bringing this session to fruition. We've been discussing about this for the longest time possible, and now finally the bird is in the air. That's what I would like to say for now.
Welcome and thank you, Professor Hegel Mosh. Bozo? Bozo, you are unmuted. Please go ahead. Bozo, we can't hear you. Are you speaking?
Yes. Good evening.
Good evening. Can you introduce yourself?
My name is Bozo Jenje Bozo. I'm from Lamu. I'm the director of Lamu Technical University of Mombasa campus. I'm an author, and I love reading books. Thank you for inviting me for this occasion.
Oh, thank you. I'm feel most welcome. Dennis? Danjira Minaki, Dennis? Dennis?
Hi, I'm Dennis from Kenya, Kiambu. I'm a student at JKUAT. Love reading books. Thanks.
Oh, I see comrades are here. Ah, wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. Thank you very much, comrades, for joining us. General Minaki?
Yes, my brother.
Kindly go ahead and introduce yourself, General.
Yes, my lord, give thanks. My name, my ethnic African name is Kukletu Spar. My Rastafari name is War General. I'm from South Africa. So I'm part of the CSG, and this is my brother Pigpin, and I'm glad to be here. Thank you. Oh yeah, I mostly deal with historical research. Yes, thank you.
Yeah, give thanks, General. Pleasure to have you with us. Sokiris Samuel?
Thank you so much. Sokri Samuel Matatia in Obongi district. I'm a student of religion doing my master program from Victoria's University. I'm so excited to be in this platform. Naturally, I love reading, and that's all about what brought me here. I love reading so much, and especially issues to do with the African problem, challenges. I love it so much based on my identity being an African. Thank you so much.
Welcome and greetings all of you. It's a pleasure and I appreciate your presence with us. It's not for granted. Yeah, we are starting a long journey, a revolutionary, proactive, progressive journey. It's not only reading as a reading club, but we are reading a powerful tool. And I think they said, I don't know who they were, that if you want to hide something for an African, put it in books. But then we who have gone inside the books, there's nothing hidden for us. And we are conscious, enlightened than other population. We look forward to see how we can spread this practice and ensure that many Pan-African can love the reading and love Afrocentric reading and materials so that we can actually liberate ourselves. Now, this book called Defeating Dictators, Fighting Tyrannies in Africa and around the world. What we look forward to do is actually, this reading, not actually course, this study group will explore the themes, argument, and case studies presented by Professor George Aiti, and will focus on understanding the nature of despotism, historical context of tyranny in Africa, and strategy for promoting democracy and freedom of the people. We look forward to have 10 weeks, if actually go per a chapter per every week, but we might go beyond 10 weeks. We might go to 15 to 16 weeks with this book, and we look forward to have a session after every 2 hours in every Sunday. So our weekly breakdown is actually week 1 we'll be doing introduction to the book. We'll do actually reading the introduction. Discussion points will be overview of Haiti's objective, the concept of freedom recession, and as described by Freedom House, the importance of focusing on the opposition rather than solely on dictators. The second week we'll be looking at despotic regimes. Today, we'll still be in chapter 1. We'll be discussing definition of despot, autocrat, tyrant, and dictator. We'll also be looking at characteristics of contemporary despotic regimes, and we'll also be looking at case studies of current dictatorship. The third week we'll be going to chapter 2, which is traditional societies, which will be looking at things like myths about traditional society and their governance, comparison between traditional governance and modern despotism, the role of kinship and consciousness in traditional political structures. Week 5 will actually be going to, sorry, let me get my book. Yes, week 5 will be going, week 4 will be going to what we call indigenous cabs against despotism. That will be chapter 3. So historical measures taken by indigenous societies to combat despotism, the relevance of these measures in contemporary context, the discussions on the effectiveness of traditional systems in modern governance, and week 5 will be doing modus operandi of despotic regimes, which is chapter 4. So key topic issues is how despotic regimes maintain power, the internal and external support of dictatorship, strategies for identifying and undermining these supports. Week 6 will be looking at the demise of despotic regimes. Key issues is factors leading to the collapse of despotic regimes, historical examples of regime change, the role of public discontent, and economic factors. Week 7 will be looking at stirring for freedom, which is a chapter 6. That will be part of discussion. So we'll look things at case study for successful and unsuccessful pro-democracy movement, analysis of the lesson learned from this movement, the importance of timing and strategy in revolutionary movements. Week 8 will be looking at the strategy now, which will still be in chapter 7 of this book. So characteristic of an effective opposition, the need for unity among opposition forces, discussion on the role of the media and communication in mobilizing support. Week 9 will be looking at reversals in revolutions and how to avoid them. So analysis of revolutions that have failed to establish lasting democracy, factors contributing to the reversal of democratic gains, strategies for ensuring the sustainability of democratic transitions. Week 10, it will be international importance and hindrance, which will be chapter 9 and epilogue. We'll be discussing things like the role of international actors in supporting and undermining democracy, discussion on the concept of odious debt and its implication, final reflection on the book's overall message and its relevance today. Part of the activity we look forward to engaging after every session or throughout this period of our group discussion include one, a weekly reflection. So we look forward for members to write a short reflection, 1 or 2 pages on the reading and discussion topics, which you can share with us. It's like your thinking, your paper, your work, you can put it. After these studies, after the week, once you're done with this study, before the next study, you can engage in some of your writings to share your thinking and put it in paper. You can relate it to the content in Africa Today, but we look forward to weekly reflections. We can submit this in any of our meetings on a weekly basis. We look forward also to you engaging the next reading or next chapter in between the week. We look for what we call group projects. We look at research and present a case study of specific dictatorship and the strategies used by the opposition forces. This book has covered up to sometimes in 2010. So there are other things that have happened up to date. So once you are reading this, how can you be able to do more of research and put it in the present African context as you look at it, and what are you giving in terms of the strategies being used as well? Then the final paper analyzes successful or failed revolution discussion, the lessons learned, and how they apply to the current struggle for democracy. So we look forward as we end this, probably you can have some paper out of this discussion and out of this book. So our primary text is actually Defeating Dictators by Georgia Iti. We'll actually have supplementary books by Georgia Iti and other books by Great Revolution and Pan-Africans. Any book of our request is available in our Pan-African library, which will request you actually, if you have time, to join us so that you can benefit of so many books written by so many Pan-Africans across the ages. So yes, that is the program on how we want to run this lesson. Permit me to get any comments from you members before we go straight to the book. Any member who has any comment, feel free to share how we can adjust or what you think we should do. So feel free to share your comments at this initial stage.
I would like to make a comment. While we are discussing the book, Defeating Dictators, after every session, we should also be able to do some bibliography and suggest other books that might be connected in theme to that particular text, the text we are discussing today. That's my comment.
Thank you for that. I think that comment is noted. Yeah, we will be able to identify some books, and if there's any books also commented, because see most of the writers also cite some books. If there's any book they might cite through the process, I'll be able to ensure that I have it and avail it to members here before the next reading. And yes, we will also be able to suggest other books. And these books, the good thing is that I can easily find them. So anytime you have to look for any book, in case any book come across, don't be worried, I'll be able to avail them to members as soon as possible. Any other reaction or comments? Any comment or reaction from members before we go straight to the reading based on the program?
Yeah, Son of the Lake. Yeah. Okay. Let me just comment. Maybe what you can do, maybe you can read for an hour. Then after an hour, we go to questions and discussions. Then we final comments, we close. That's what I wanted to suggest.
Thank you. So Brother Raspala proposed that we do actually reading for an hour, because this is a big book. If you do an hour reading and then we can cover much, then we open up for discussion and comment for 45 minutes. Then you have final comments for 15 minutes before we end. Are we in agreement with what Raspala is proposing? If you are in agreement, feel free to raise up your hand in the chat. Just raise up your hand so that I can be able to see whether we are in agreement conscientiously that we agree that we do a reading for 1 hour, we do a 45 minutes discussion, and a 15 minutes probably resolution or what we task us a way forward. Is that okay with members? I'm looking at the chat. You can be free to raise your hand if you feel that's okay. I'm not seeing any hand up. in the chat. Egel is supporting that. Dennis is supporting that. What about other members? Are you adopting the proposal by Brother Ross Palada to do a 1 hour reading, a 45 minutes discussion, and a 15 minutes way forward? Okay, anybody who is objecting that, feel free to share your comment in a minute. After a minute, I'll assume that everybody supports that. And then we take that as a resolution and go forward to our reading. Okay. Now we'll go with that. And for this case today, we'll start the reading from this time 9:30, which is 6:30 sometime or somewhere, and we'll do it for the next 1 hour, and we'll have 30 minutes for discussion. But next time we'll start immediately so that we do it 1 hour and then have the next minutes available. What I propose in the reading is that we read everything, one person alternatively. So one person will read the first part, next person the next part. Somebody can read one page, the next person the next page, like that. So that everybody can be able to have something to say. If you're not in a position or being able to read, you'll always tell us pass. Then we'll allow to pass. Is that in order? Okay. So let's get ready and start this. So I'll read the or remark here, the opening stage. This is Palgrave Macmillan. They're the publishers of this book. The book is called Defeating Dictators, Fighting Tyrants in Africa. And then actually the author, and around the world, the author is George B.N. Ayiti. Now, Defeating Dictators is the same thing that's in the next page. And I'll read also this. Also George Ayiti, and available from Palgrave Macmillan include African Betrayed. We have it in our library, Africa in Chaos. We also have it in our library, and Africa Unchained. All these books are available in our library. Defeating Dictators is actually co-written by George B.Y. Ayiti, 2011, and all rights reserved. First publication was in 2011 by Palgrave Macmillan, the United States of America division of St. Martin's Press, LLC, 175 Fifth Avenue, New York, NY, 110. Where this book is distributed in the UK, Europe, and the rest of the world. This is by Palgrave Macmillan, a division of Publishers Limited, registered in London, in England. Copy number is that, and Hondmails, Balsad Hampshire, RG216XS. Palgrave Macmillan is a global academic imprint of the above companies and has companies and representatives throughout the world. Palgrave and Macmillan are registered trademarks in the United States, UK, Europe, and other countries. The ISBN of this book is actually 978-0230-10-859-2. The Library of Congress cataloging in publication, Data Ayiti, Defeating Dictators, Fighting Tyrants, that's it. And all those IBN, Democratic Africa, Regime Change Africa, Dictatorship Africa, Africa Political Governance, and then you have democratization, regime change, dictatorship, all these. A catalog record of the book is available from British Library, designed by Letra, Liber, first edition, 2011. Now, dedication. I'd like somebody to read for us the dedication. Who is ready to go first? The King, are you able to read for us that page of dedication? And I hope that every member will be able to have a copy of this book with them. If you don't have, indicate so that I can share it with you.
Okay, I will try and read it.
Okay, please go ahead, Brother the King.
Okay, so dedicated to the friends, the freedom activists who have died in the last few years. Fighting tyrannical regimes. Abdul Baki, Jabali, Ahmed Benkensi, Luans Matobu, that's Algeria. Sorry, I have eye problems, so I'm trying some more. Oleg Bebenin, Belarus. Wang Bingzang, Hu Jia, Gao, Zinsberg, Liu Jianbo, Yu Jia, that's China. Delphi Namutu, yes. Kadi Ajaba, and Bruno Koko, Cheram Biza, Congo. Khaled Mohammed Said, Salahuddin Mohsen, Saad Eden, Ibrahim, Egypt. Matewis, okay. Matewis Habteb. Let's get a minute. Matewis Habteb, Emmanuel Ashrat, Medani, Hill Yusuf Muhammad, Ali said Abdul Qadir, Faisal Hai, Yohannes Yusuf Muhammad Ali, Said Abdul Qadir, and Medhani Hill, that's Eritrea. Shiberi Disalig, okay. Tensa Zigi Ye, Haptamu Tola, Binyam Degafa, Behalu Tesfaria, Kaslim Ali Rashid, Theodoros Gide, Helu, Adisu, Belachio, Milian Kebede, Robi, Testa Umar Biru, Turuwok G, Chadik El Nash Takel, Abebet Uletu, Wigasa Fayesa Teshami rather, Addis Kidami, and Bitukan Midksa, that's Ethiopia. Deide Hidara, Tarata Dabi, Pa Mado Phil, Pamado Phil, Pap Sain, Ibrahima, Sawana, Sam Sa, and Abu Bakar, the Gambians. Okay. So now, a minute.
Brother Dekin, I know you have an eye problem. Will you need some assistance?
Yeah. Some assistance.
Okay, let me finish it. So we have Deda Haidara, Sarata Jabi, Pa Modou Fal, Pap Saine, Ebrima Sawane, Samsara, and Abubakar, which is Gambia. So we have Sana Jale, Muhammad Makhtari, Neda Aga Sultan, Klan Tajbakash, Muhammad Reza Ali Zamani in Iran, Idris Fayed, Daif Al-Ghazal, Abd al-Razik al-Manzouri, Fadi al-Jami, and the rebels in Libya, Kamsulum Kazim, Tunde Oladepo, and Tunde Salau in Nigeria, Huang Jang Yop, another pro-democracy activist in North Korea, Anna Politkovskaya, Anastasia Baburova, Natalia Estomirova, Stanislav Makelov, Mikhail Beketov, Oleg Kashim, Anatoly Adamchuk, and others in Russia. And in this list, permit us to add everybody we know who has actually died as an activist and anybody who has actually died fighting despotic regimes in our countries in this present state. With this, comrades, I request that we take a minute of silence to actually remember the souls of these freedom activists who have actually sacrificed their time and their life to fight tyrannic regimes across the globe. And as we join them together in the fight and in the study, we permit and request that they actually souls rest in peace, and may the whole Creator guide us in this struggle. A minute, please, of silence. Thank you for observing a minute of silence to all those fallen comrades. May their soul rest in peace. There are so many comrades I didn't cover as well. There's Jean Leonardo Rombango, Andre Kagwa Rizwek, and Victorie Ingabire Rwanda, Yusuf Koa Meki Sudan, Tal Al Maholi Syria, Mohamed Bouzizi, Lahassin Naji, Ramzi Al Abdullah, Mohamed Amari, Chwaki Bel Hausine El Hadri in Tunisia, Jimmy Hingenyi, Dr. James Rwanyare in Uganda, and God knows Zoro Mchakazi, Give Tadere, Shefandugu in Zimbabwe. May all their soul rest in peace. Comrades. The content of this reading include chapter 1, which will be introduction, advancing the cause of liberty, which is an introduction. Chapter 2 will be, of course, you have acknowledgement. So chapter 1 will be despotic regimes today. Chapter 2 is traditional societies. Chapter 3 is indigenous camps against despotism. Chapter 4 is modus operandi of despotic regime. Chapter 5 is demise of the despotic regime. Chapter 6 is stirring for freedom. Chapter 7 is the strategy. Chapter 8 is reversals in revolutions and how to avoid them. Chapter 9 is international importance and interest. And chapter 10 is epilogue. Notes, bibliography, and index all included. Acknowledgement. Permit me also to take us through acknowledgement, then we start the reading from the introduction. So let me also go through the acknowledgement as well. In my struggle, various people, both Americans and Africans, as well as foundations, institutions, agencies have provided me with support and encouragement. I owe each one of them a huge debt of gratitude. The HeArt or the eArt Foundation in Ann Arbor, Michigan was helpful with the funding to enable me to complete this work or this book. The J.M. Kaplan Fund in New York was extremely helpful, as was the Cato Institute in Washington, D.C. The board of directors of the Free Africa Foundation, its staff, scholars, and associates must also be mentioned. Kate Colburn of Northbrook, Phil Harvey of DKT International, Mary Kaplan of New York, and Ed Claflin, my literary agent, among others, have been extremely supportive. There are many others, Americans, Canadians, South Africans, and other nationalities to whom I still owe a debt of gratitude. Lynn Kriner, John Fan, The Wall Street Journal, Georgia Ann Guiana, nationally syndicated columnist, Ashley Amerson, Elizabeth Dickinson of Foreign Policy, Sandy and Margaret Waterson, Maggie Bedore, Luba Ostashevsky, Alan Branshaw, and others were particularly helpful as well. Last but not least have been numerous Ghanaians and other Africans who have shown unflappable support for the work and the writings. Worthy of mention are Dr. Shaka Sali of Straight Talk Africa, Mohammed Idris Karatana Kale, Dr. Charles Mensa, Abba Adidija, Reverend G.B.K. Owusu, Vivian Boafo, and many more others. A special gratitude is owed to Emmanuel Odam 10 and administrative assistance of the Free African Foundation for his diligence, steadfast support, and research. In their final analysis, however, the views expressed in these books are my own, and any errors of misstatement are sole responsibility. That's George B.N. Ayiti, PhD, Washington, D.C., U.S. in July 2011. Brother Hegel Mwash, just to confirm, Dr. John Ayiti is no longer alive. Hegel?
Yes, Dr. George Ayiti is no longer alive. He's deceased.
He deceased in around 2022, probably.
Yes, yes.
So permit us also to appreciate him and also wish him the very best, and may he rest in peace, and may his writings, his knowledge, his aspirations, and his dreams also guide us in this revolutionary struggle that you are partaking. So comrades, thank you very much. Now let's go to chapter 1, introduction, and I'll request members to help us in this reading. Who is ready to go first?
Let me read,
I wish every member will be able to read something before we end.
Let me read the first page.
I'll go first.
Okay. Basil, you read page 1, Hegel will read page 2, like that. Next person page 3, and then you go around again and again. Professor Hegel, are you able to remove the mark?
The mic. Oh.
The mark you have made on the book.
I'm trying to.
Introduction.
Yeah, please proceed, Basil.
Introduction. Advancing the cause of liberty. Democracy has suffered a steady decline 5 consecutive years in a row. In its 2011 annual report, Freedom House described this as a continuing freedom recession. It suggests that conventionally, ways of fighting dictators are not working, and that a evaluation is imperative. These spots are gaining the upper hand. They have learned new tricks and honed their skills to beat back the democratic challenge. The purpose of this book is not to present a catalog of grotesque atrocities and scandalous human rights violations that despots around the world perpetrate against their own people. The singular purpose is to advance the cause of liberty. There are millions of people in Africa, Asia, Central Asia, the Middle East, and South America who will still labor under the yoke of tyranny and who yearn to be free. This book seeks to help liberate them. It may seem like a formidable and impossible task that is strewn with obstacles, but it depends upon the way the problem dictatorship is viewed and tackled. In the past, even conventionally, much effort, money, and time have been spent to reason with, persuade, cajole, or bribe dictators, or even threaten them with sanctions. Western governments have spent billions in this effort to no or little avail. A new way of thinking or a different approach is imperative. Leave the dictators alone for now. They are stone deaf and impervious to reason. Railing daily about the abuses of human rights, acts of brutality and violence will not alone bring about change. It is time to think about the other side, the opposition, the pro-democracy activists and reformers. That is the focus of this book. Dictators have proliferated, especially in post-colonial Africa, not so much because of their ingenuity, but because of the nature and character the opposition forces, both the domestic and international, arrayed against them. To be sure, dictators are crafty, evil geniuses with awesome firepower at their disposal. They are brutally efficient at intimidation, terrorism, and mass slaughter.
Professor again.
However,
Professor again, take it out from there.
Okay, however, a force is able to dominate because the counterforce is either non-existent or weak. Despots have prevailed for decades because the opposition forces are weak or crumbling. The purpose of this book, based in part upon my own personal experience and on lessons garnered from several developing countries, is to strengthen the opposition forces. Too many in the West have become complacent or tolerant of despots, especially in African nations. The standard arguments are there are no democratic tradition, despotism is part of the political culture, dictatorship is acceptable to them, and as French President Jacques Chirac once said, Africa is not yet mature enough to Western-style democracy. Such misconceptions, resulting from mythology and false assumptions, have informed many Western policies and foreign aid programs that have failed miserably after costing hundreds of billions of dollars. The intention of the policies and programs might have been laudable, but it is absurd to seek to help a people one doesn't understand. Despotism is not a new political phenomena to the people of the developing world. They have encountered it in their traditional societies and devised various measures to check and deal with it. Chapter 2 takes a look at these traditional societies, many of which still exist, their social structures, political organizations, and governments, in which kinship is the articulating principle. The chief, king, or ruler is not chosen by voting, but is appointed by the approval of the council. Governance is based upon consultation with councils, and decisions are reached by consensus. This appears to be the near universal style of governance among many natives of the developing world. Despotism is incompatible with such systems and is fundamentally alien to most of the natives of developing countries. Yet the fact that the natives were very much aware of the threat of despotism suggests that the proliferation of despots in modern times is the result of near total absence of the curbs and checks and balances that exist in the traditional systems. Chapter 3 looks at these gaps. This way of looking at despotism is different from the conventional and has two advantages. First, it dispels the offensive notion held by some in the West that despotism is acceptable to these people. Yeah.
Finish that paragraph. Just finish that paragraph.
It's never been acceptable. It has never been acceptable. Second, it frames the arguments against despotism in cultural terms, not the standard Western narrative. This approach invokes a sense of cultural betrayal by the despots and inoculators of the case for freedom against the charge of being Western sponsored. Casting the cause of freedom in a Western or religious framework polarizes the debate and detracts from the basic issue of liberty. The West should not tolerate despotism in developing countries, nor should despots use their traditional systems to justify their tyrannical rule.
Thank you, Comrade Amma. Please speak it from there. Comrade Amma.
Yeah, you want me to take it from? I'm finding it difficult to see it. Let me see.
Can I enlarge it for you, or can I?
So you want me to take it from where?
From the paragraph Egel has just left, starting with on the battlefield.
Okay, I will do my best. Oh, wait,
Chair.
yeah,
Chair.
maybe it's a bit smaller.
Yes.
On the battlefield,
Wait a bit, Comrade Amma. Wait a bit. There's somebody speaking.
Can you hear me?
Chair. I suggest,
Yes.
if it is possible,
Yes.
the members, the book can be shared to members if they have got their laptops. They can transfer to their laptops and then they can read it well.
That's a very good idea, but I'll try my best here. So
I have shared the book on the chat now.
Okay, I'm going to try and read from here so as not to delay. Excuse me.
Okay, but I've shared the book.
Shall I go ahead and read it?
Yeah, please go ahead.
On the battlefield, one must know the enemy, his strengths, weaknesses, and tactics. But I'm going to put in there his or her strengths, weaknesses, and tactics. Chapter 4 discusses the modus operandi of despotic regimes like a table. Despotic regimes. Like a table, a despotic regime has legs, props, or supports. For despotic regimes, these supports are both external and internal. One does not fight a regime by climbing on top of the table to fight it where it is strongest. Instead, one identifies its props and systematically severs them. The law of gravity then takes care of the rest. Despotic regimes, external props come in the form of foreign aid, foreign loans, diplomatic recognition, and so on. The internal support comes from security forces, civil servants, intellectuals, and students, among others. Support is often brought with patronage, government appointments, and perks. A despotic regime does not last forever. It violates the natural order of things and eventually collapses under the weight of its own internal contradictions. Paranoia and insecurity often plague despotic regimes, and palace intrigues often lead the despot to suspect plots by everyone, even his own military. He may create layers upon layers of security just in case one layer fails. In the end, however, he may be hoisted by his own petard, overthrown or killed by members in his own security apparatus. The demise of a despotic regime is the subject of Chapter 5. Do you want me to go on?
Proceed until the end of that chapter,
Okay.
that paragraph.
Freedom lovers and freedom lovers and democracy activists, however, cannot wait for a despotic regime to self-destruct. It may take decades. Witness the regimes of the Tan Shui of Myanmar, Burma, and Colonel Gaddafi of Libya. And even if a regime self-destructs sooner, another dictator may take the place of the one who has been overthrown. Therefore, a proactive stance or strategy must be forged to hasten his demise and ensure a peaceful transition. Towards this end, Chapter 6 examines successful pro-democracy revolutions in the Philippines, February 1986, Estonia, Latvia, and Lithuania, 1987 to 1990, the Czech Republic, November 1989, Ghana, December 2000, Georgia, November 2003, Ukraine, November 2004, and Tunisia and Egypt, 2011. Why were they successful and what lessons can be learned?
Thank you. Thank you for that reading. Sokiri, Comrade Sokiri, take it over from there.
Okay, thank you. This author was one of the heretics of the non-violent democratic change in Ghana 2000 and takes pride in the fact that Ghana was the first sub-Saharan Africa country visited by President Barack Obama in July 2009. He chose Ghana because it is a model of good governance and democracy. The author role in bringing about changes in Ghana is briefly described in chapter 6. We see also look at unsuccessful revolution in Iran, June 2009, Zimbabwe, March 2008, Kenya, January 2008, Myanmar, and June 2009, Zimbabwe, March 2008, Kenya, January 2008, Myanmar to Burma, September 2007, Venezuela, November 2007, Ethiopia, November 2005, and China, April 1989. What were the reasons for this failure? With lessons learned and mistakes to be avoided in chapter 7, we seek to lay out a smart and effective opposition strategy. It takes an intelligent or a smart opposition to make democracy work, not the raw, noisy type that simple chat, Mugabe must go. A smart opposition must know the weakness of the enemy and exploit them, which is the first rule of combat. One does not fight an enemy on the tuft on which he is strongest. One exploits his weaknesses. Toppling a dictator, however, is only the first step. It does not necessarily establish freedom and prosperity. Many countries have experienced revolution, reverse a dictator, topple only to be replaced by another tyrant. As Africans are fond of saying, we struggle very hard to remove one cockroach from power, and the next rat comes to do the same thing, or worse, have a dam. Africa is not unique in this regard. However, the hala of lower revolutions in post-communist republic in Central Asia have faded or waited in George Roast, her Graythan tulip, and Ukraine orange. In East and South East Asia, some Peloponnesians yearned for a return of Ferdinand and Emeleth Marco, and some Indonesians are contemplating making Sarta a national hero. Chapter 8 offers a sobering assessment of the reversal of revolution and the reasons for them. Chapter 9 examined what role, if any, the international community or the West can play to assist pro-democracy movement. The picture is not pretty like their domestic counterparts. International opposition or resistance to despots is generally weak, impotent, and crumbling. And crumbling the international effort is led by a harness gallery of Western donors, multilateral financial institution development, expert human rights, advocacy groups, Hollywood star, rock stars, pro-democracy activities, and a whole bunch of others. There is no coordination among them, no roadmap. Some even work at cross purpose with one another, massive confusion prevail.
Thank you, Sokiri, for that. Comrade Dennis, please take it from there. Dennis?
didn't know that I was part of this. Dictators have been responsible for many of Africa's humanitarian catastrophes, providing itself aid to the victims of repressive rule, and leaving the dictators in place makes little sense. It is a band-aid solution. The Darfur crisis in Sudan, in which the international community simply cleans up after the dictator. Omar al-Bashir is the most obscene. To be sure, he has been indicted by the International Crimes Commission, ICC, for crimes against humanity, and there is an international warrant for his arrest. Yet he travels freely in Africa and in the Middle East, thumping his nose at the world. A dictatorship.
Hegel, hello, can you hear me? Anybody?
Well, we can tell you.
Okay, sorry that I lost some of you along the way, and maybe I got off. Sorry for that. Hegel, I'll make you a co-host. Can we continue? Dennis?
Yeah, we.
Dennis is not with us, so we'll go to the next person who can speak from where Dennis was leaving it. And that person should just start from the dictators. I don't know what happened. So let me get to the person who should be General Anunnaki.
Yes, man.
Just
Dictators
speak it
have
from.
been,
Yes,
hmm?
proceed. Proceed from there.
Dictators have been responsible for many of Africa's humanitarian catastrophes, providing relief aid to the victims of repressive rule. And leaving the dictators in place makes the little sense. Sorry. And leaving the dictators in place makes little sense. It is a band-aid solution. The Darfur crisis in Sudan, in which the international community simply cleans up after the dictator, Omar al-Bashir, is the most obscene. To be sure, it has been indicated by the International Crimes Commission for Crimes Against Humanity, and there is an international warrant for his arrest. Yet he travels freely in Africa and in the Middle East, thumbing his nose at the world. A dictatorship is a closed society that needs reform in many areas: intellectual, political, constitutional, institutional, and economic. Oftentimes, the international community pushes one type of reform out of the sequence and compounds the problem. For an example, pushing economic liberalization before the political reform amounts to putting the cart before the horse. Economic liberalization will engender economic prosperity, but without political reform, that prosperity will not be evenly distributed. It will enrich the ruling vampire elites, leaving the mass of people in poverty. Crony capitalism. The elites' ostentatious lifestyles, the public perception of corruption, the growing social inequality will eventually provoke civil unrest if food prices rise sharply or if there's no jobs for the youth. That is when the political day of reckoning will arrive. If political space is not opened up, the country may implode, dissipating all the economic gains. Indonesia, Ivory Coast, and Yugoslavia are examples of this. China currently faces this dilemma. Thus, political reform must precede economic liberalization. In the same vein, intellectual freedom must precede political reform because the people need the intellectual freedom to determine the type of political system they want. Real reform begins with intellectual freedom, continues with political, constitutional, and institutional reform, and concludes with economic liberalization. Call it Ayiti's law. The West underestimates the reformist potency of freedom of expression and its corollary, free media. The free media. The free media in Liberia, Rwanda, Sierra Leone, and Somalia, for an example, have saved those countries from implosion. And it is free media, not sanctions, that will halt Iran's nuclear ambition. Free media in North Korea would spank that incorrigible tyke into good behavior. And free media would clip China's chopstick mercantilism down to size. The free media are the most effective weapon against all dictatorships. So why is the West trying to reason with or appease dictators?
Thank you, General Raspala. We'll pick it there for Brother Dennis. Dennis, I know you had an issue and you left. And welcome, my friend Dave Ndagire from Uganda. Happy to see you around with us. Is Dennis still with us so far? We are doing the reading of this book. Yeah, Dennis, please. I don't even know what happened to me as well, but I also crashed off. So just take it from there, chapter 10.
Okay. Chapter 10 provides an epilogue, right, and lessons learned, most poignantly from the author's perspective. Finally, a few cautionary notes. First, the term opposition group or leader is applied throughout this book to pro-democracy groups and leaders. Although, in practice, there may be groups and leaders whose democracy credentials are dubious. Second, it is acknowledged from the outset that this book has a slant toward Africa, in the sense that many examples and illustrations are taken from that continent. Although every effort has been made to include evidence from other continents, there are numerous despots in Africa and only a smattering on other continents. Of the 54 African countries, only 15 can be said to be democratic. Thus, by dint of logic or reason, Africa represents a trove of information about despotism that can be mined. However, regardless of this nationality, race, religion, or ideology, despots use the same. Despots use the same modus operandi despots use the same modus operandi. Third, though the terms freedom and democracy are used interchangeably throughout this book, the two are not necessarily identical. Democracy can result in an elected tyranny or tyranny of the majority. Fourth, this author foresaw the upheavals in North Africa and that spread to the Middle East. Back in 2005, I wrote Africa Unchained, which warned of the cheetah generation, a new generation of angry Africans. They are young, educated, and tech savvy. They brook no nonsense about corruption or dictatorship. They understand democracy, accountability, and the rule of law. They won't sit there and wait for dysfunctional governments to come and do things for them. They are taking back Africa, one village at a time. Tunisia and Egypt have been reclaimed. More countries soon will be as well. Fifth, mention must be made of noteworthy contributions by Gene Sharp in from dictatorship to democracy. Yes, he covers the same terrain with astonishing brevity, but his approach tends to be somewhat theoretical and lacks a cultural perspective. Furthermore, this author, having been part of the struggle for democracy in Ghana, speaks from experience. Thank you.
Thank you all, comrades. I see we get to chapter 1, but I'll request that we actually have a conversation on that chapter before we move to chapter 1, if that's okay. So we can have a conversation of what you've heard in the introduction, and that will mark our introduction for this reading today. Then next week we'll start chapter 1. Is that in agreement with the members, so that we can actually have time to share our thoughts in what we have read in the introduction?
In agreement that we may start the discussion, and then chapter 1 we may handle next week. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anybody objecting that proposal?
I'm in agreement as well.
Okay, thank you. Now, okay, thank you. It confirms majority of us are in agreement. In that line, what we do is that we will go per person, and we will ask you to share your thinking in regards to, or what you understand in regards to what has been shared to us in chapter 1. And I'll go by list. So I'll call you, give you time, probably 5 to 10 minutes maximum based on our number, to share your thinking. Feel free to refer me to any part of this book or any part of where we've read this, and any points you've come across, just feel free to share it with us. So in this line, I'll start with, in my list, Brother Hegel, and then I'll go to Bozo, then Sokiri, then Ama, until the new members who have joined us. So Brother Hegel, feel free to start us off.
Well, am I audible?
Yes, you are audible.
Well, one thing I've actually observed or learned from what we've been reading is that there's a section I've actually highlighted called Toppling a Dictator. It seems like the author is trying to tell us toppling a dictator is not an easy thing. And there have been many dictatorships that have been in Africa that have been toppled only for the same dictatorships to return in other ways. We have had a situation where, for example, there was a popular uprising in a particular country. People are euphoric, emotional. They believe that change has come. And what happens is that the change that comes is another dictator comes in. In Kenya, we talk about the same monkeys. We're talking about old forests and new monkeys phenomena. So that was part of chapter 7. They're talking about that will be part of chapter 7, toppling a dictator. However, it's only the first step. It does not necessarily establish freedom and prosperity. So I believe as we'll be reading this book, we should actually place this on our radar, that removal of a dictator is like removing a disease. It's not the final solution to your health. After we remove the dictator, there must be nutrition. The body that was actually sick from the dictatorship must now be nourished back to health. That's my view concerning our current reading.
Thank you. So the paragraph you've referred to is this paragraph I've highlighted that says that toppling a dictator, however, is only the first. It does not necessarily establish freedom and prosperity. Many countries have experienced revolution reversals. A dictator is toppled only to be replaced by another tyrant. As Africans are fond of saying, we struggle very hard to remove one cockroach from power and the next rat comes to do the same thing or worse. Haba.
Exactly.
Thank you for sharing your thinking.
If I may add, during the process of toppling a dictator, there's always a lot of euphoria and emotional upheaval in the people. This emotion clouds the people from looking ahead. When you're planning to topple a dictator, you must also find a replacement that is a legitimate replacement. If we were in a democratic country or a democratic continent and our aspirations are democratic, we should always have several bullets in the gun. You just fire the first bullet and the gun is empty. You have nothing else to do. So like our present situation in Kenya, for example, we all perceive Ruto as a dictator and we believe that he must go. But then after he goes, what next? That's my question.
Thank you. Thank you. You refer to the upper paragraph saying Mugabe must go. And what next?
And what next?
Thank you. Bozo, please go ahead.
Yeah, can I add
Thank
what?
you.
So it's brilliant to hear from
Remember, I'll come to you.
Yes.
So let me go to Boso in that order. You'll be free to share your thinking in the whole of what you've read. So let's go to the order. But you're free to share your thinking in any of what you have read before. I'll always go back and forth. So Bozo?
Thank you for giving me this opportunity to share my thoughts. Now, the pointers that I've picked up are that we have the angry Africans, that is the cheetah generation. In the Kenya perspective, we would regard this as the Gen Z, who actually don't want to be connected with issues of corruption and poor governance. So this cheetah generation, as it is written in the African Unchained, according to the author, is the one that seemingly might bring change in governance to see that Africa becomes a democratic, it's become democratic. Another thing that is a pointer that I've carried home is about the leadership. In the leadership, there is the tendency that we normally change one leader to the next. Yeah? So what we normally do, we don't check for the parameter of the leadership that we bring in to govern during the cycles of election. So what we normally do is what is referred here in the context of the book as the color or flower that fades. So we normally bring leaders that we value during the elections, but we don't look at their characteristics and the kind of leaders that they are, regardless, provided they are able to actually influence the masses to vote them. But when they come into leadership, they fade so quickly because they repeat the same mistakes that are done. And the other pointer that I've carried home is about the author perspective. He looks to be more biased when he looks at the Afghan context in a dimension whereby there is what we call the crumbling democracy, but he looks at it from the lens of the Western perspective without giving us an outline of the parameters that they actually is perceived mostly here in the aspect of the developing the third world countries. But in the really sense, dictatorship should be looked in all the perspectives, looking at all the democracies per se. This is what I've gathered from the context of the book, and I would like to know more about what the author really was, intention was after going through the entire text. Thank you.
Thank you very much, comrade. As we say, you have right to your thinking. So you're free to share your thinking. Nobody should come to counter or oppose your thinking, because basically you are reacting to the text. So thank you very much, Comrade Bozo. Comrade Amapoku. Comrade Amapoku, feel free to come in and share your thoughts with us as well. If
Sorry, I think I got cut off a little bit there because I didn't hear anything which the last person said. Okay, let me try and go back to the text which I was just reading. Give me a moment. I'm just
Can I give you time?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I'm asking, can I give you time, or you're free to share your thinking?
No. I'm just looking back at the text. I'm having to look. Where is it here? Introduction. I just have to find the text because I'm on my phone. I can't find where it is. It was around or just after the bit which I read, and I just have a question. Where it talks about when Obama visited Ghana. The author talks about when Obama visited Ghana. I'm trying to look for it.
Okay, I'll help you look for the same, but you can proceed sharing your thinking. I'll locate it on the chat.
When Obama visited Ghana, and Obama chose Ghana to go to because it was a model of good governance and democracy. And my question is Ghana a model of good governance and democracy? What do we mean? Oh, here I found it. So this is on page, well, it hasn't got the page number. This author was one of the architects of the non-violent democratic change in Ghana in 2000 and takes pride in the fact that Ghana was the first sub-Saharan country visited by President Obama in July 2009. He chose Ghana because it is a model of good governance and democracy. So my question to us is Ghana a model of good governance and democracy? And if so, what makes it a model of good governance and democracy? Because had elections in Ghana.
Yes, it's very interesting. Sister Amma, it's very interesting the point you're bringing. And probably you're asking us. I think it's something we can reflect on when the author decided to say Ghana is a good model of democracy and good governance. Can we think about this and see how he came about to this? But I think we'll also be able to expose this later. Fact that he came from Ghana, I don't know, he wanted to take, it was more either partial or he was more inclined to Ghana and anything else. But yes, that's what he shared and that's what he said. But also you're free to say what you think.
Of course, I'm free to say what I think without interruptions.
No, let us allow Bozi to finish. Then anybody want to react to that will be free to come in.
Was only trying to react to her question. I wanted to try to answer her question in a short way, but
okay, please do. Do briefly, then she can proceed.
Okay, in 1 minute.
Yes, please do briefly. Then Sister Amma can proceed with her contribution as well. So, David, do you want to help respond to that? Then Sister Amma can proceed. Okay, Sister Amma, please proceed. Dennis will get a chance when he comes back. But let's finish your thinking.
I think I finished my thinking now.
Have you finished your line of thought?
I've finished my line of thought for now because that is my question is, I do not necessarily accept what this author is saying in terms of Ghana in particular being a model of good governance and democracy. So it raises questions for me. What do we mean by good governance? What do we mean by democracy? How does that translate for people? What do we mean by freedom?
Okay. Dennis, you wanted to attempt to help in this answering. Dennis, are you free to come in?
These are all words, and it's almost like, so for me, we're looking through a particular prism. But anyway, I will leave it at that.
Okay. Dennis, you wanted to respond to this. Are you able to come in?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, please proceed.
Okay. I was trying to give an answer to the comrade there, asking what makes Ghana, according to the author's words, the model of democracy in Africa. I was saying that just this week, I watched a documentary about a lady who observed the last elections in Ghana. She was part of the election observers there. And she actually said the same thing, that Ghana, in the whole of Africa, seems to be a model of democracy. That I think herself and this author are referring to the change of leadership that comes free and fair in elections, and the elections are conducted at the time they are supposed to be conducted, and the people who it reminds me in one word that she said. She said that that particular election period, the voting happened, and all the observers had this free sense of atmosphere that the elections were being conducted free without any disruptions, and the opposition leader declared their victory before the Electoral Commission declared results in the next day. They declared in the evening, and the incumbent declared that the opposition won and conceded to that loss before the Electoral Commission announced the official results that pointed to the opposition winning, and the incumbent freely accepted the results of those elections. And she observed that there was no presence of military on ground in the election process. This is unheard of in most of African countries today, and for the years of numerous elections that have already been organized. That's the model that I think the author, whoever is talking about, is referring to. Thank you.
Thank you, Dennis. As you have said, we can only speculate what the author thought, but we cannot be exact on what was his thinking. And because he is past and is not with us today, it's still upon us to reflect on the question Sister Ama Poku asked, and using the evidence, of course, what Brother Dennis is trying to provide, whether does it actually concur with what might have informed the author to share his thinking. As I've said, even the author is free to share his thinking, and we are also free to share our thinking and reaction to the author, including sometimes taking a different stance with what the author takes, and sometimes questioning and critically examining. So, Sister Ama, I might not say that we defend the author, but we understand his thinking, and probably we may not justify or defend it totally, but there might be some avenues to try to read his thinking. Do you have anything to say before we go to the next person?
Well,
I have something.
Can you hear me? Yes, because I will challenge that Ghana is an example of good governance. Because what is good governance? So we have changed from one party to another, and as far as I'm concerned, two sides of the same coin. What is good governance? If I go to Ghana now, I'll guarantee you within 24 hours the electricity goes off. So where's the good governance there? That's what
Thank you for your
question. In terms of Ghana being an example of good governance and democracy, I'm challenging what he seems to be implying good governance is and what democracy is. If all democracy is changing, is flipping a coin, so today you've got heads, tomorrow you've got tails, then you can say Ghana is an example. But if democracy is about having a government or people in governing positions who are meeting the needs of the people, which includes, I've given the example of electricity, then Ghana is not necessarily an example of good governance. I will leave
I
it
agree
at
with
that.
you. Absolutely.
Okay, thank you. To end that conversation, Sister Amma has provided us a challenge, and let's work on it. What actually defines what you call good governance or democracy? Then maybe when we come to the next session, we might spare some 10 to 15 minutes to hear what people think in regards to this takeaway question that is coming from this discussion today, and see what we've think about it. You cannot explicitly explore all this today, but please let's take away this as more of like a takeaway assignment to us. What is actually defining good governance and democracy as per what is your thinking as an individual? In that line, permit me to get to, of course, I want to go to Ghana again. The king is here. Let me go to Dennis, who had responded. Share with us your thinking in this text, then we can go to the next person. Dennis, come in to share your thinking now in what you've read in this text. Dennis?
Sorry, you're giving me an opportunity now.
Yeah, now to share your thinking in general of what you've read here and what you've heard here. What did spark your attention, or what do you want to share?
Yeah, thank you for giving me that opportunity. Really, I think I was when I came in earlier, I was trying to respond to someone who had said something beautiful about dictatorship and how the dictators are prolonging themselves first by their own policies and also by the citizens who keep supporting them. Well, I think I would want to give you my view on that is that if a dictator has stayed so long in power, they have obviously mastered the game and placed some what I call mastermind ideas or policies that will help the citizens themselves to feel they'd rather have this devil they know than an angel they don't know. So that kind of behavior or policies or whatever the dictator is allowed to place only explains one thing, that Africa does not have true leaders. Well, if we want to go into the aspects of what a true leader is, you can find that in your dictionary or on Google in 1 minute. What we have are manipulators, politicians who, of course, because if you're a politician, it doesn't mean you're a leader. That we can also get that difference. We can get that distinction. A politician is not necessarily a leader. They are just interested in the next elections, interested in their influence, in their power. And if you're interested in power, and if somebody describes you as that person is powerful, well, what they have done is they have just exposed the fact that you're not a leader. Because a leader is not supposed to be powerful, supposed to empower instead. Empower the next leaders, empower the citizens to do better, to perform better, to live better. A comrade who just spoke about Ghana, the fact that exposing these authors thinking about Ghana being a model democracy in Africa just because of exchange of free exchange of power, that's not necessarily what democracy really is. Democracy is really about the sense of peace that people have in terms of resources or services that are provided to them. And if everybody is struggling in the country and you're changing government from A to B to C, we still call that democracy is laughter. And that comes about because Africa does not have the sense of true leadership. We do not know what true leader actually means and what true leader is meant to do in their positions or for the people they're serving. And I want to stop there because I would have so much to talk about when it comes to leadership. I am currently studying deeply on leadership. I invite you, ladies and gentlemen, to read so widely about leadership because leadership factor is the missing factor in Africa. We don't know what.
Thank you.
We don't not know. Thank you.
Thank you, Dennis. In regards to your comments as well, we do appreciate that. I'll go to the King Mauli. Share with us your thoughts in regards to what you've read. Speak to the text. You can have contemporary examples you want to draw, but speak to the text. The King?
Oh, I'm okay with the explanation so far.
So you don't have something to say?
No, I don't have anything to say for now.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
I hope you'll have something to say in regards to Ghana being democratic and good governance in the next class.
For sure, I will definitely have something to say on that.
Thank you.
Okay.
Let's get to JM. JM was here. I don't know if he's still here. Did he leave? Okay. So next person who read was Sokiri. Sokiri, can you share with us your thinking? I'll come to Geoffrey and I'll come to you also, Brother Dagiri. Dagiri has left again. Oh, he's here. He's still here. Okay. Let me go to Sokiri first. Sokiri?
Well, thank you. In the
You're
first
not audible
part of
enough. Now you're good. Now you're good. Proceed.
okay, thank you. In the first part we have so far read, we look at methodologies on how actually to deal with a dictator, and there is some other kinds of interesting share that it should not be done in a way like it was done to Hassan Mubarak in Egypt, where demonstrators could shout, "Go, go, Mubarak, go." But it tried to provide us with an insight on how we shall be in position to deal with a dictator. And one of it include actually by identifying the weakness of that dictator. And if we use that weakness, we could be in position to remove a dictator from power. The second element here is actually the freedom of actually media. You find when there is freedom of media, and then the citizens of the country will be in position actually to see how the government is moving. So the good part of what the government is doing and the bad part of what the government is actually doing. So when there is freedom of media, actually it is another way to fight actually dictatorship, because in naturally actually government does not like its bad parts to be reported, to be put on media, to be put on press, so that people will be in position to listen on what is happening. So by presence of media, it will be in position to help so much to fight dictatorship, but also I suggest that it will bring up good governance. Thank you. This is what I will be in position to share from the text.
Thank you for drawing our attention to the potential importance of media to the democratic and not actually democratic towards this struggle. Thank you for pointing us to that. Let me get to Geoffrey Muga. I know you came a bit late, but if you have something you can say to the text, please feel free to share. Geoffrey Muga. Geoffrey Muga. Okay. General Anunaki, please go ahead.
Yes, son of the lake. I'm surprised about this man who wrote this book. He seems like he's moving to the right now. I don't know what's going on with this man. But let's read and see, because now when he's saying that Ghana is symbol of good governance and USA approved, whereas the champion of Pan Africanism was talking about Pan Africanism and scientific socialism. Yeah, it's confusing now. So hey, for me personally, I think this man is getting confused now. You see, because we as Africans,
This man is getting confused.
hey,
Just proceed. Ras, proceed.
hey, son of the lake. Let me just stop there. Yeah.
Okay. But you will get to, this is the beginning of this conversation, so we'll get into deep and more and more. Frederick, please come in. I know you've come late, but please come in to share what you can share with us in regards to this.
Sorry, can I just interrupt? I have to apologize.
Are you getting me on?
Hello, I'm just giving my apologies. I have to leave now, but
Are you getting me on?
Join you next week.
Okay. Sorry, Frederick. We are getting yes, Sister Amma. Thank you, and we get your update that you're leaving us, and please try to join us next week same time. This is the beginning.
Yes, I will do. Okay, then. Bye-bye, everybody. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Brother Frederick, please proceed.
Okay, are you getting me on?
Yeah. Yes.
Hello. Okay, I'm called Diplomat in Nigeria K. Frederick, the chairman, Young Pan-African Association. I came a bit late, but I have noted a lot of points from the discussions and some points that were discussed about topping the dictator and so forth. The first statement that I will make, the author of this book wrote this book out of excitement, but it did not include in the rational thinking about democracy, that Ghana is the ideal model of good governance. And this observer had just gone in Ghana only for the exchange between, I think, President
Frederick.
And the current leadership. But when you look at Ghana, look at the 1966 group. Yes. Let me finish up. I will not take a lot, but let me first share my ideas. From 1966, you look at President Dr. Kwame Nkrumah. I think that's the last time we had good leadership in Ghana. I want to tell you of Mr. Dr. Bushia. Remember leadership of Mr. Nkura against Sachin Kong and other leaders. So the ideal country of good governance in Africa is Botswana. If you look at Botswana, its leadership has been consistent. And when you say that USA approved, no, when we talk about the word democracy, democracy do have two types of democracy. What we call liberal democracy. Don't define it before that it is and 76. The Americans approved the government of Mr. Pol Pot in Cambodia as being democratic because they were fighting against the socialism ideas. And they approved, but the government of Pol Pot killed more than 6 million within just 3 years. So was that democratic? Then when you look at France approved the government of Jean Bedel Bokassa in Central African Republic as being democratic.
Frederick, I think we've lost you. Frederick, I think we've lost you. That's okay, yes. I was part of the last speakers that was coming in regards to those who are present during our reading. And they see one comrade has also joined us. In this regard, we are left with the 10 minutes. But I'd like to point out some few things also from my side as I share my thinking before we come to an end. Frederick, if you're back,
Yes,
please.
Are you getting me?
Yeah, take some 2 to 3 minutes.
Hello.
Yes, we can hear you. Proceed in some 2 to 3 minutes.
Are you getting me on?
Yeah.
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, I was saying, yes. I was saying the USA government approving as being democratic does not mean that that country is democratic. The USA government approved the government of Pol Pot in Cambodia, but that government killed around 6 million because for it, and it was fighting against the socialism, the fights against communism or socialism is seen as being democratic. The government of France applauded the government of Jean Bedel Bokassa in Central African Republic, not because it was democratic, but simply because they were fighting against the Eastern influence. And we saw them approving the government of Mr. Ben Ali in Tunisia. France also approved the government of Mr. Ben Ali in Tunisia. But was it really democratic? No. The West approved as being democratic if you follow their ideas. If you follow capitalism, then you are democratic. But in simple terms, my idea in here is Ghana isn't as democratic as it is. They're talking about liberal democracy. They must have been talking about liberal democracy. We must understand that. I will not share much about it, but what you can say, we have is it liberal democracy or liberal democracy because of democracy. So that point must be understood clearly. So the USA approving Ghana, I don't think. And the best democratic country we have in Africa is Botswana. Let me talk about the side of someone talking about despotic leaders. A question is, where do despotic leaders, do they come from Mars? Do they come from, when we talk about it in Africa, yes? My time is over.
You have a minute to go. You have a minute, please.
Okay, let me finish up with the dictator. What I was saying is, when we say bad leadership and dictators and so forth, where do these leaders come from? I think they come from our communities. Who elects them? It is us who elects them. So when we want to work the problem of governance, then that means it is our communities that are sick. It is our communities that are not informed because these people who lead us come from us. And when they become leaders, then they turn against us. There are two reasons if we want to do that. One, we must educate. That's a sign of ignorance, let me tell you. A dictatorship, when a country has a lot of dictatorship, that's a sign of ignorance in the community. People are not informed. People are less conscious about political freedom. When you look at a leader, let me use most of the dictators enough compared to other countries in Western Europe. It is because most of the people in Africa want to make Africa democratic, good governance. We must invest much more in education to make our people understand what we need as people. Like in a book that was written by Mr. Angela Y. Davis. Yes, that's what he says. Education is important. So if our people remain ignorant, we shall continue electing more dictators. Thanks.
Okay, thank you, Frederick. We have 7 minutes, but I would like to point on some few key points that have been raised here that we need to take consideration on in the next 7 minutes as we then come again to meet next week. One is in this first paragraph, which it says that it suggests that conventional ways of fighting dictators are not working and that a re-evaluation is imperative. Despots are gaining an upper hand, they have learned new tricks, and they have honed their skill to beat back the democratic challenge. I think that one is something you need to take home and think about it. The next thing is when it says that this book seeks to help liberate them. It may seem like a formidable and impossible task that is tuned with obstacle, but depends upon the way the problem, and in this case the problem is dictatorship, is viewed and tackled. So how you view it and tackle it is what makes it either possible or impossible or formidable. Another aspect that is being brought here, I'm just highlighting some few aspects before we leave as part of the few things we need to think about. He says that a new way of thinking or a different approach is imperative. Leave the dictators alone for now. They are stone deaf and impervious to reason. Railing daily about their abuses of human rights, act of brutality and violence will not alone bring about change. It is time to think about the other side, the opposition, the pro-democracy activists and reformers. It goes ahead. Another thing I want to point again is that there's an element here that dictators are crafty, this one, that I want also to point out to as a takeaway things that we can look at and think about them as we think of the next class. It says that, to be sure, dictators are crafty, evil geniuses with awesome firepower at their disposals. They are also brutally efficient and intimidation, terrorism, and mass slaughters. We'll look at that as well some months back. So that's also something we should note.
May I say something?
Oh, Hegel. Yeah. Who is Hegel?
Yeah, that's me.
Okay. As I'm trying to highlight some points, you can just go as I took some points. Yeah.
Yes, we also need to highlight a certain section of chapter 2. When you look at chapter 2, there's a point about...
Chapter 2 or paragraph 2?
Paragraph 2, we are discussing paragraph 2. No, not paragraph 2 necessarily. We are still at
page 2.
Are we not? Yeah, introduction.
Page 2.
Yes, page 2. On page 2, there's a small discussion on matters African traditional systems, and they're telling us that in Africa previously we had a system of eliminating or controlling or curtailing dictators. Let's place that on our radar as we read this book. What were these systems that we Africans had of curtailing dictators? How did we prevent our local chiefs and kings from evolving into tyrants? How did Africa manage its political power 500 years ago or 1,000 years ago before the arrival of the colonialists in such a way as to prevent tyranny and despotism from coming into the picture? We should be keeping that in our radar, in as much as we're reading this book that has many concepts in play.
Okay, thank you. I've highlighted that as well. It's actually paragraph 2 of that. Also, we need to take note of this aspect, also say that despots have prevailed for decades because the opposition forces are weak or crumbling. That's also something very important to note, and what you have said as well. And we need to note other things that are within this book as well. We may not be able to finish this, but comrades, just in a nutshell, because we have 3 minutes to go and we will always be very strict to time, is that this is the beginning of a conversation we are starting. We are starting to read this text, and we don't know what is ahead, but we can tell there's a lot of interesting maybe thoughts that might come along as we read this text, and we look forward to all members to be free to share their thinking. Be free to challenge the author. Of course, this is not a Bible that they tell Christians that you cannot challenge the word of God. No, this is a thinking of a man, and we believe that we Pan-Africans are conscious enough to make our own thinking. You can agree, disagree, criticize, and examine, or try to examine the positions of the author. It's not our preference as a chair. It's not that I actually prefer this, but I think it has a content that we need to examine. And the purpose of this class is to examine this content and this text purposely and very effectively. So comrades, this is the start. I think we've started well, and I'm looking forward to next week. We continue the reading. We have finished introduction, so probably next week we'll start from, no, we'll finish introduction, yes. Next week we'll start from chapter 1, which will be on, let me check it. Chapter 1 will be discussing about, let me check that. Chapter 1 will be on despotic regimes today. Please, if you don't have a copy of this book, get in touch with me. But I think majority of you have a copy of this book. Read ahead, but don't forget what Sister has also asked. what makes what you call good governance and democracy. Of course, Frederick Ndagiri has tried to talk about this extensively, but I think we can spare some few minutes in our next class, 10 to 15 minutes, so that we can look at that critically and deeply. I am actually honored and humble for this startup. I believe it's going to be a very good way forward.
Absolutely.
And comrades, let's do this. Let's do this. Thank you.
Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful.
Bye-bye.
That's it from
Catch up.
Bye-bye. Let's catch up next week.